Yeah. All right. You're welcome.
Oh, sure. Thanks.
My feet still don't touch though. That's so funny.
Meeting it was.
Yeah.
I didn't read the email yet.
But the email must have left before he was talking about
Yeah, of course.
No, a lot's going on there.
You can ignore my text, Ann.
What was it? You running late?
Yeah. Got here under the wire.
We're ready whenever you are, Ann.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the February 23rd, I can't believe it's this late in the month already, February 23rd Planning, Energy, and Environmental Quality Committee. Hope everybody's doing well this morning. Glad we didn't have an ice storm. So let's see, do we have any public comment?
I'm letting them in as panelists right now.
Okay, great. And I just wanted to say that Veronica Pillar, we have everybody in chamber for the committee except Veronica Pillar, who's joining remotely and will be able to vote.
We have Martha, Sarah, and Brian for public comment.
Great. Do you want me to call on them, or?
Yep.
Martha, I see you're unmuted, so why don't you go ahead and go first. Good to see you, Martha.
Hi, Amy. Hi, everybody there. Thank you very much for having a few minutes for public comment on some important issues. And I really appreciate that the committee has a resolution on climate change bills and budget initiatives that the state is considering right now. It's a really, really critical time for the state to take action. As you all know, the Climate Action Council passed the scoping plan at the end of December that lays out the full suite of actions, very comprehensive suite of actions that we have to take in the coming years to try to combat climate change. And what now has to happen is the legislature and the governor have to come together on concrete actions, on regulations, on funding, on a variety of issues. And that's actually why it makes sense that your resolution has quite a number, I won't speak to each bill, but has quite a number of measures that really need to be considered and taken up as and supported as a whole. As the resolution states, and the cost of doing nothing is immense. The cost of inaction is estimated by their cost-benefit analysis from the Climate Action Council to be more than $115 billion more expensive to do nothing than to take the actions that we need to take for climate mitigation and resilience. Especially the All-Electric Buildings Act is something that's we are very familiar with in Tompkins County. We have hundreds, maybe more than hundreds, maybe thousands of buildings that are on all electrified, heat pumps, renewable energy, and much more efficient, that we know that these technologies can work in the coldest climates of New York State. So I do hope that the legislature will take a strong position on these measures as are listed in the resolution. It's really important for Tompkins County to be out front, to be a leader, and to put your stamp on these important measures. So thanks a million for considering these actions. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Martha. And for folks that might not know Martha, she's a former county legislator, former chair of the legislature. So thank you, Martha. I'm going to go across the screen as I see it here. Next is Sarah Kulata.
Everybody, here with us, I chair the Climate Sustainable Energy Advisory Board. Know quite a few of you in that role. I also, in my day job, work to electrify buildings. I work to build renewable energy projects. I work for a very large company called Siemens with a very large presence in New York State and across the country. The U.S. is our biggest market globally for smart infrastructure. And I'm here to say we need all the pressure we can get. There's a huge pot of money coming down the pike from the Inflation Reduction Act. I just had an hour of training on it today. Our company is following that money and educating its employees, including me, every week as these regulations get promulgated through Treasury and various federal agencies and eventually through NYSERDA. We've got to tell the public through these kinds of legislative actions, we need to tell people in New York State they've got to do this change and get the federal dollars into our state that's coming down the pike to support those changes. And it is so hard. Everybody's got limited bandwidth. This is new technology. These are new regulations. It's a new day. I mean, our budgets, just dealing with our budgets at the municipal level, at the school district level, at the college and university level. Those are the spaces in which I work. It's hard, and we need all the pressure we can get. So I think that the resolution as written is just like an endorsement of doing the right thing, telling our state legislative leaders that they need to do the right thing so that we position everyone in New York State to make these changes, get this money, get the benefits that are available. And by the way, I live in one of those all-electric buildings. I am in a neighborhood of 40 units, 25 single-family homes, and 15 units in an apartment building that are all electric. It's a very nice lifestyle. So I know it can be done, and that's all I'll say for the moment. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Sarah, and thank you for chairing the case board. Brian Eden is next.
Oh, thanks for hearing me this morning. I'm also a member of the case board. I've been on county energy advisory committees for the past 15 years. Rather than be redundant, of course I support the resolution. I just want to provide the committee some advance notice on a matter that I may propose for next month's peak agenda, which also has major implications for energy use and greenhouse gas emissions. I'm glad to see Barbara Ekstrom here because I'm planning to talk to her. I've talked to her about these issues in the past, and I've known her since she took the role of Director of Recycling and Materials Management, and I know at the New York Product Responsibility Council, which she's a director of, that she's discussed EPR principles for many years. And so anyway, I hope I can squeeze in on your agenda, but so I'm doing a presentation to the case board this month on March 8th about EPR. I'm hoping to get their support for a resolution that would be advanced to this committee. The best opportunity to reduce excess packaging and waste is to incentivize reduction by shifting the cost to manufacturers and retailers. That will shift substantial disposal costs from taxpayers and municipalities. Much excess packaging is due to plastics. Much of the plastic production is devoted to single uses. Plastics production is expected to double or triple by 2050, from 44 metric tons to 120 metric tons. Most plastics are not actually recycled, with rates less than 10%. Only number 1, 2, and 5 are being recycled here in curbside collections. Some others may contaminate the waste, collection, the recycle stream. Some can be brought to drop off. So the principles of a good EPR program are: set ambitious targets, improve recyclability, restrict use of toxic products and packaging, shift responsibility and cost to those producing the waste, develop accountability and enforcement mechanisms, require collection and reporting of data. This will, in addition, protect our health by reducing the amount of breathing and ingesting of microplastics. So there's a lot of information. I don't want to overburden you. This isn't the place for it at this time. I just want to make you aware, and if you would like to talk to me in the interim about any of these issues, please contact me. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, Brian. I see Barbara Ekstrom's hand up.
Yeah, actually, Kat McCarthy and I, Kat's Waste Reduction and Recycling Coordinator, are also working on a resolution for this very topic. I think what would be great is, Brian, if the three of us could get together and move something forward together. I know that there's two different camps or together. I know that there's two different camps about moving this forward, and there's a lot of excitement in the Senate, Assembly, in the governor's office. And I believe that we kind of lean more to the Judith Eng side of things anyway, even though I'm on the New York State Product Stewardship. So if you're interested, let's get together and move it forward together.
Absolutely, Barbara.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. I see Irene in chambers. Did you want to say anything now? I know you said you'd be available for questions when we do get to that resolution.
Yeah, so I'll just say a couple of words now. First of all, let me take my mask off. You guys think we're a safe distance, right? So hi, everyone. It's nice to be here in person. I haven't been since COVID hit, so this is really great to see everyone for real in 3D. And I, too, am here very much in support of the resolution that's before you today. I've been a member, Fossil Free Tompkins, which is the organization that I coordinate, has been a member of the Renewable Heat Now Coalition since its founding, which is at least 6 years ago now. And I'm here to say the time is now, and that Tompkins County has been a leader on a lot of these issues already. A lot of what we're pushing for the state to do, we're already seeing happen here, in particularly in regards to new buildings being built all electric. It started years ago, the Breckenridge building at the corner of whatever that is, Seneca and Cayuga, where it used to be the women's center, right, or the women's building. Anyhow, that's been renewable heat for years. The Art House, another low-income housing, is all electric. The city center, the big gray and white checkerboard downtown, that's all electric. The airport has ground source heat pumps now. I want to just dial back a little bit of what Sarah Collada said when she said these are new technologies. Heat pumps are actually really old technologies that are being repurposed in new ways. Every one of you here, I guarantee, has a heat pump in your house. It's called your refrigerator. And heat pumps move heat from one place to another. So a refrigerator takes the warm air that's inside your refrigerator and moves it outside your refrigerator. That's why it's always warm in the back. If you reverse that pump, it can take the heat that's outside and push it into the box of your refrigerator. Of course, we don't want to do that with our food, but we do want to do that with our homes. And so you can use either heat pumps that take heat from the ground or heat pumps that take heat from the air. And people often question, how do you get heat from the air when it's 15 degrees out? Well, guess what? When the temperature drops from 15 degrees down to 8 degrees, that's 7 degrees of heat. So actually, as the temperature, so you can take heat from even 15-degree air, and heat pumps these days are operative down to even 0 degrees. And below, actually, they just lose some efficiency below 0, but they still work. To pull the heat out of the air and concentrate it and put it into your home. So I'm available, happy to answer any questions you have about any of these bills as we go forward, but I just wanted to add a little bit of that.
Thanks, Irene. And in case any of you folks need to get going from the case board, that I just want to say later on our agenda, we'll be talking about liaison assignments, and Veronica Pillar has volunteered to be our liaison to the case board. And I have a conflicting meeting now with the case board, so I'll try and still go once in a while, but I'll be late when I do go. So I'm glad that Veronica has signed up to do that. And she already did attend a meeting. So let me just look at our agenda. So I'm going to ask, since we have some folks here about that resolution, how members feel about moving that resolution up. Could we move that up in the agenda? Do that? Okay. So why don't we, if departments don't mind, we'll put that right after the, I'll delay the chair's report, but we'll put it after minutes approval. Okay. Any other changes to the agenda that anybody has? Okay. And so we're going to go right into advisory board appointments. Any questions on those? Okay, just to save time, I won't read all those, but thank you, everybody, for volunteering and for continuing. I know it's a lot of work. This particular committee has a lot of liaison appointments, and I know it's a lot, takes a lot of time and commitment, but I think we hopefully learn a lot of different things that are going on in the community, and keeping in touch with our advisory board appointments, which are a wealth of information to us. So let's see, would someone like to move the advisory board appointments? Randy, seconded by Greg. Any discussion? Okay, I'm going to do a roll call vote since we have one member remote. I'm going to start with Veronica.
Yes.
Susan?
Yes.
And Randy?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so that passes unanimously. Thank you, everybody. And let's get the minutes approval out of the way so we don't forget. January 23rd, 2023. Would someone like to move that? Greg, seconded by Susan. Any discussion on the minutes? And thanks to our clerks for doing that. Okay, I'll start it. I'll keep in the same order for today's meeting, just so you know when it's coming. Veronica?
Yes.
Susan?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Randy?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so the minutes are approved. And again, I'll wait on my chair's report. And so we have this resolution to support state budget proposals to address climate change. Would someone like to move that? Okay, Randy, seconded by Greg. Okay, any more? So we had some discussion of this and some information, so, but I'll open it up. Do folks want me to give a more of an overview, or do folks want to just jump in and see if you have any questions? I think a lot was probably explained by the case board members. And actually, I will say that this was spurred by, this resolution was spurred by the case board members who helped, because I will tell you, I cannot keep up on the different state legislations. So again, really helpful. The case board actually then had a subcommittee that helped that met with Veronica and I and went over this, and still my head was swimming, but they helped us again to figure out to narrow it down. There's so many things going on at the state level that really we could advocate for when you talk about climate change, but they helped narrow it down to just a couple that they thought was most important, and I wanted to thank Martha for helping edit this. And the reference material you have from the Renewable Heat Now package, which goes into a little bit more of this. And just one, actually I will say the bill numbers, I went to go check, and I sent this an email late. I couldn't double check the bill number for the passage of the Stop Climate Polluter handouts. So I'll go ahead and we'll keep trying to check that, because I looked it up this morning and I couldn't find, to make sure that that one had changed names. But we'll check on that and make sure that that's the correct bill numbers before it goes to the legislature. If we need to change that, that's just a manifest thing, right, Brittany? We could change the bill number if we needed to. And I'm probably going to add a few more people onto the resolved of who it goes to, because it was pointed out to make sure this bill goes to the people that sponsored these bills, which I did get those names. Randy.
Yes, thank you. There is a lot of information here, and too much information, so I'm glad other people are understanding it more than me. I'll vote for this to go through the legislature, but I may vote against it at that meeting. And I do have some questions about it. I've been involved in energy conservation for 40 plus years, so I understand the value of that, and it's important. But I do have a question here. Would it be that any house that is built after 2020 or 2024 has to be electric?
That's what we're pushing for.
So,
right.
So no gas whatsoever?
Right.
Not even for cooking?
Right. So one of the things that, and I'll see if Irene wants to chime in or anybody else that helped this. One of the things that we environmentalists and people looking into this looks like gas is more appropriately left for industry, because there's often no other way for them to do their processes. Whereas houses, it's very easy to turn them over to electricity. So with also our limited fossil fuels left, save them, because at some point we're going to run out. So save them for industry where it really makes sense for them.
I actually read an article about electric rates. They expect them to double in the next 6 to 7 years. So, I mean, there's also issues related to that. I'm worried about our grid. What happens if your grid goes, then what? And I also read an interesting article in the Wall Street Journal how a lot of this, there's people that really are profiting off of this. And it's a transfer of wealth to different entities than the people who do oil and gas. And maybe that's good, maybe it's bad, I don't know. But it's interesting. The Wall Street Journal article was really quite fascinating. It's been probably 4 or 5 months ago that I read that. And I have a lot more to read about this and understand it. I have friends that are builders, and they're quite concerned about not having natural gas for cooking. But I'll learn more about it, but I will vote for this to go through the committee. So.
Thanks, Randy. I just want to say one thing about natural gas or any gas. Natural gas is worse for cooking than propane as far as environmentally. Just you might want to look up, just Google or whatever your search engine, I should say, look up the health effects of cooking. That's actually much worse to cook with natural gas versus using it for your hot water heater, for instance. The amount of toxic fumes that get into your house. Yeah,
I have a lot more to learn about it. I would like to say something about Brian's future plans for a resolution. I was involved in the packaging business for over 15 years and worked with a lot of large manufacturers. And most of them are zero waste facilities. I mean, they require their suppliers to provide them with a product that can be recycled. So I thought I'd share that with you. And so I support what you're focused on. So
Thanks for pointing that out, Randy. It can be done if it's important. Susan, and then Irene, you wanted to make a comment?
Yes, I wanted to just say something about natural gas. I mean, there have recently been a lot of studies done about the health effects of cooking with natural gas. There was a piece on, it was in PR, where there was an extensive study done about comparing children who had severe childhood asthma.
Susan, can you hold on a second? Rob, I saw you put in the chat that you're going to remove people that spoke at,
Never
you're
mind.
not going to. Okay.
He and I have side conversations. We're good.
Okay, great. Sorry. Thank you, Susan.
No, that's okay. It's just that there recently health studies are in the news about the effects of cooking with natural gas on childhood asthma and the increase and the severity of childhood asthma in homes where natural gas is used for cooking. So, I mean, I think that's something that's really important to look at. When I was growing up, gas was, everybody had a gas stove, and then all of a sudden it became very trendy. But I will say I was a child with terrible childhood asthma, so I'm wondering if the gas had an effect on that. But it is something that's very much in the news now, the health effects of having natural gas in the house.
I remember my mother lighting her cigarette off the natural gas.
Me too.
Which was real safe, but anyway.
Thanks. You guys are all totally on point about the health impacts of burning gas in your house. I just want to point out that with building codes now being for much tighter buildings, it becomes even more of an issue.
Right.
And so you know, it's actually, you know, cooking with electric isn't so bad. There's new induction stoves, which bring the, you know, some people who are really good chefs, you know, or think they are, like to play like they are very, you know, excited about the responsiveness of gas, that you can turn the heat up and down very quickly. Induction stoves are even better on that. And they're very efficient. Their costs are coming down. To Randy's concern about, you know, if the grid goes down, if we have a storm, I presume is what you mean, Randy. Any, you know, your gas heating doesn't work then either, because, you know, whether you have forced hot air or circulated hot water, you need electricity to run the pump to circulate your thermal heat. So either way, when the grid goes down from a storm, we get cold, unless you have just a, you know, basic wood stove. So you won't be protected from that. And there's an incredible example of that I forgot to mention to you of new construction that's going on up in Lansing, which some of you may be aware. There's been a moratorium on gas in Lansing for some years now, I think since 2015. The Lucente buildings, the Village Solars that are out on Warren Road, Lucente has just become a total heat pump convert. He's built now 560-something units on Warren Road. It's 25 buildings and 560-something, you know, apartment units that are all using heat pumps. The old buildings that he had there that were on gas, he decided, after he started building with heat pumps, because he had no choice, he learned how much more his tenants appreciated it, and also how much easier it was on his maintenance staff than dealing with gas. And so he's totally a convert. He's now, my understanding, is looking to build out in Dryden, and probably will be using heat pumps out there as well. So, you know, another advantage of them that we don't often have in our buildings here. I mean, some of the new buildings, I guess, going in have it, but air conditioning. And one of the advantages of putting in a heat pump system versus putting in conventional fossil fuel heating plus air conditioning is there's actually an economy there, because if you're doing both fossil heating and air conditioning, you're building two systems. Whereas if you put in a heat pump system, it can do both. So, so the costs, especially for new construction, are very manageable, very doable. Again, Lucente, my understanding is that he hasn't even taken any government subsidies to do it. He's just doing it, and it works. So.
Thanks, Irene. Martha, we're going to try and keep, if we can keep our comments quick, but I just wanted to say real quick, when Randy mentioned like a power outage too and a gas stove. So your gas stove, I have a propane stove right now, and so that would not work if I disconnected from propane, but we have such frequent power. I'm at the end of an electrical line, and I have frequent power outages, and there's very little impetus for the NYSEG to come and restore my power, since it's usually just a couple of houses. So I have a small battery bank that I have with solar panels for it, if so needed, because I'm so tired of the outages. I can plug my refrigerator into it, and I can also I haven't tried it yet because I do have a propane stove, but I have a small tabletop induction stove, you know, just like a little heating thing, and I could plug that into my little battery pack so I could keep my refrigerator going and cook.
Is there anything in this, the proposed bill for grid improvements?
Not
grid
in,
strengthening,
I don't know about in these particular, but do you want to answer that real quick?
Sure. It's not in these bills, but there's a lot being done at the state level to build up our grid.
Yeah, that's
and they'll bill us.
Sorry?
And they're going to bill us.
Some of it is being funded through the federal infrastructure funding,
right.
And some of it, yeah, it'll find its way either through rate cases or through state funding.
I'll do my research.
And Martha, real quick, and then Greg has a question.
Yeah, thank you, Randy, for your questions. Just very quickly, a lot's been said. The conference center that's under construction right now on Green Street is all electric. That's, I don't know, was it 12 stories? 12 stories or 9 stories of affordable housing above, and the conference center on the first 2 stories. That kitchen for the conference center is going to be all electric. They wouldn't make that investment if they didn't have confidence that it would work and that they could prepare, you know, restaurant quality food with induction stoves. The power outage, the health issues, those have been covered. As far as affordability, when you're only building one system, that is an electrical system to the house, then you're just building one system. If you have to also build a gas system, then then you're paying right up front and then forever for that duplicate system. It's truly kind of an unnecessary expense. And as far as the transfer of wealth, I think we just have to look at the cost of the climate damage that we are all paying for in the trillions of dollars, the disruption in people's lives, the deaths, et cetera, and the oil and gas industry has not been held accountable. They are responsible for those costs, and they've externalized those costs to us. So I think the real opportunity here is to make this transition. It's time. The technology exists. Our builders, our contractors, frankly, they have more work than they can handle. So this is a jobs opportunity as well. If we can train people to put in the new systems, then we really will have a full jobs economy, and that will also help protect our future for our kids and grandchildren. So thanks very much for your leadership on all of this, and happy to answer any questions offline if you want.
Thanks, Martha. Greg?
Yeah, I definitely will support this, as I personally have put in new projects and new buildings and things like that. Obviously, heat pumps is the way to go, and in certain municipalities, it's the only way to go. It definitely, the technology is improving. You don't have to have these bulky heads on the wall anymore. You can do ducted systems. You can do all sorts of different types of things. So, I mean, this is the way that we're going. This is the direction that we need to be going. My question comes, and again, I haven't dug in and read every word of every single one of these bills yet. To Randy's point, I'd like to do that. And my question comes around whole house generators for redundancy. A lot of people in areas have whole home generators, and those are typically run on either natural gas or propane or diesel. Would this All Electric Buildings Act essentially eliminate the ability to have a whole home generator? I know some people have it for medical devices that they need to have, or backup. I know Ann, you talked about solar and battery banks and things like that. I guess I just wonder about what's the redundancy issue, because I think that's some of the the grid conversation always comes up. I don't think we should stall progress for some of these type of things, but I was just wondering, because I haven't, and I know there's some of you that have had more time in this, does this fully eliminate any sort of fossil fuel, natural gas, propane from being installed in the home, and it would be 100% electric? Or for something like a generator, would that be able to be installed as part of this legislation?
I believe that a generator would be able to be installed, but potentially not tied to the gas pipeline system. So it would be independent of that.
Like a standalone propane
or
diesel.
Diesel.
Okay.
But I don't think there's, I've not seen anything that prohibits that.
Got it.
The technology for electric, some people call them power walls or power banks, that, you can get those now.
Yeah.
Generic, I believe, is one of the biggest companies that sells the backup power supplies, and they have them. Tesla has them, and so I could see them becoming more mainstream, that more companies are going to be able to have them. And then because of that, you can have them installed, because you don't need to, you're not burning anything. They're more efficient, and you can just have them installed in a basement wall versus having to have them outside.
Sure. So,
And people will eventually, like you, Annie, have their own Teslas or some version of an electric vehicle that can go from vehicle to house in an emergency as well.
Right, the F-150 already has the 220 outlets, but can you plug it back in? So good questions. So I'm wondering, are people comfortable wrapping up the conversation to get to a vote? Okay, thank you for all the conversation and the great questions and all the information provided by our case board members, experts in this field. So let's go ahead and take a vote. I'm going to start again with Veronica.
Yes.
Susan.
Yes.
Randy.
Yes.
Greg.
yes.
And I'm a yes, so that passes. Thanks, everybody, very much. And just to put one more comment on this, so after this hopefully passes the legislature, we will be sending it on to people, to relevant legislators, senators, the governor, and Veronica and I are going to, we're in Albany for the state conference of counties next week. We're going to be seeing if we can talk to some of these folks ourselves. And again, we'll be talking about it coming from Veronica and I, because it hasn't passed the full legislature yet. And anybody that's going to NICEX, welcome to join us, because I think this is one of the most important things happening over the next umpteen years. So thank you very much, Irene, for coming in person.
And thank all
Martha.
of you. And like the other case board members, I too am happy to entertain any other questions, communication that you might have.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you, Brian and Sarah. I think Sarah left already. Thank you very much. Okay, let's go on to Department of Sustainability. And let's see, Katie, did you want to say anything? Or let's see, we have the the designating the Tompkins County Climate and Sustainable Energy Advisory Board. So would that be Haley first? Do you want me to go right to Haley, Katie?
Sure, that's fine.
Okay, Haley, you're here to talk to us about that.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes. You want
Okay. So this is a resolution to designate the case board, which you heard from a lot of those folks this morning, to be our climate smart community task force. And it also would designate Katie, the director or commissioner of planning, to designate a coordinator to move through these actions for climate smart communities. And so just in case you're not familiar with the program, Tompkins County is a silver certified community, one of 9 in the state. And we were designated March 24th of 2017, and that expires in September of this year. So we need to recertify in order to keep the Climate Smart Communities designation. And so right now there's a bunch of actions that have either expired, have either been retired, or there's new actions. And so we're just working through to update those. But one of the main things that has to happen first is designating this task force and a coordinator to go through that. And the main reason for this, it's actually not an expired action, but because of a change in, the case board was formed after our designation last time. And we've had some staff changes, as you know, so there's not currently a designee for either of those. So we just have to update it to get that all figured out. So I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Haley. How about we first get this on the floor? Randy moves it, seconded by Greg, and I just wanted to point out here too, the case advisory board folks left, so I wanted to thank them for being they're actually the task force, right? They're designated as the task force.
Yep. Yeah. So at their January meeting, Terry and I went to them and explained kind of what the role would be, and they moved it pending legislature's approval. So they're ready to take on this designation.
Great. Any questions, comments? Okay, great. We're going to go ahead and vote on this. Thank you, Haley. Veronica?
Yes.
Susan?
Yes.
Randy?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, that passes. Thank you very much, Haley, for doing work on this. Appreciate it. I'm sure this is just the beginning.
Yes, thank you.
All righty, and then Commissioner of Planning and Sustainability report. Hi, Katie. Do you have any report for us today?
I do. I've got a couple of items for you. I wanted to update the committee that the Building Code Administration and Operations Study is in full swing now. We put out a fairly extensive survey to get input from our municipalities, and at least one representative from each of our municipalities replied and provided input and their responses to the survey. Next week, our consultants are in town. They'll be having in-person meetings with code enforcement officers and with chief elected officials, planners, and community stakeholders who have direct experience working with code enforcement officers. So again, in the data collection phase of this and learning some interesting things, we're planning on bringing a more detailed report back to this committee in March. So we'll tell you more at that point. The other thing is last week we held 2 sessions on our municipal grants workshops where we had one of the sessions was in person at the library and one was on Zoom. We had representatives from 8 municipalities attend those sessions and several other municipal officials expressed interest in, but they weren't able to attend. We did record the Zoom meeting, so we can share that with anyone who's interested. Our staff provided information and presentations on all of the grant programs that we run that municipalities would be eligible to apply for or interested for their residents to know more about. So the Business Energy Advisors Program, the Natural Infrastructure Capital Grant Program, Municipal Parks and Trails Grant Program, Housing Affordability and Supportive Infrastructure Grant Program, our Community Housing Development Fund, and all of the tourism programs that are available for municipalities. They'd be eligible for those. And then during that workshop, it's also a great opportunity. We have 3 private consulting firms come in to talk about, you know, the role of private consultants with municipalities and how they can help them think through grant applications, do the grant applications, apply for funding to administer the grants. So that's been a positive thing. It's the first time we've had these since the pandemic. So it was exciting to be able to launch those again and get people thinking about the future and how our programs and how private consultants could help. And then finally, I just wanted to update you on the flood insurance rate maps or risk maps that are coming out. I believe all of you were sent invitations from FEMA to attend a March 8th meeting. It's called the Consultation Coordination Officer meeting at the library. It's really for elected officials and municipal staff members to learn more about the firms and the status of those maps. I know that our staff person, Abigail Connor, just spoke to the Environmental Management Council to lay out the process just so people start understanding what to expect with these firm maps. So the draft preliminary maps were released in February of 2022 and have been kind of in the works with comments from like our GIS division commented on some of the map layers that were used. FEMA's been working through those issues, and they just released the preliminary firms in January of 2023. Then they're going to have this meeting with elected officials in March, and then they anticipate having a public meeting with FEMA in person April or May, but probably April of this year. And then there's a 90-day public appeal period. And then the firms work into their process of becoming finalized, which is anticipated about 1.5 or 2 years from now. So just wanted to update you on those few items.
Thank you for those many things that you guys are always busy. Randy has a question?
I just want to make a comment. Katie, I want to thank you and your staff for reaching out to municipalities. I think it's very important, and I know it's appreciated. So,
great, thanks.
Yeah, I attended one of those trainings for the municipalities prior to COVID, and just the information that I learned that you are helping communities with our municipalities is just, you know, it's just really amazing. The amount of information and the assistance, you know, bringing in the consultants. I thought that was really helpful because the consultants then often help the municipalities take the next step to help apply for grants. If it's a bigger grant than, say, some of the smaller ones that DPS helps wrangle, it really helps, you know, municipalities apply for more money and manage projects. So I think that soft handoff, you know, to those organizations is really helpful too. And that was one of our things a few years ago, you know, talking about more interaction and more assistance to the communities, to our municipalities. And so it's nice to see this, you know, coming to fruition. Randy?
I want to mention something else, Katie. One of the things that came up in discussion was in my district is the lack of junk code enforcers. So, or people, that's a problem. And I did that job, and it's a thankless job. So I don't know, and now Newfield doesn't even have one. I'm not sure if Enfield has one either, but because nobody wants it. But I have a question for you. Has the planning department ever done any kind of vision planning for municipalities? If you know, like basically saying, I don't know how to call it anything else, but basically here's what we have, here's what we're hoping to achieve, anything like that? I mean, they just don't have that knowledge or maybe understanding of the limitations or things that aren't limited. For example, in Enfield, they have a bunch of buildings right on their main strip there, and they're underutilized. And they want to do, they want to look at their town hall, they want to look at the court their court building, all of which need some type of improvements and consolidation or whatever. So, and there's nobody that's an expert for that. So I was just curious what your thoughts are.
It's an interesting idea. I mean, we've helped with, formal comprehensive plans and that type of thing in the past, but this kind of lighter approach, so to speak, of looking at specific resources and just helping them think through the possibilities. Yeah, I'll have to think about that, Randy, but it's an interesting idea. I like it.
Thank you.
It could be something to possibly coordinated through the chamber when Enfield's going to have their meeting soon coming up with the chamber. And I think it's called Community Conversations. And when they had one in Trumansburg, that was kind of what it was like, a little bit of like, hey, how would we like to see our municipality? What's missing? What resources do we have? And how can we come together to do that? It was just kind of like the start of that, but to help figure out how to do that. I know from a development point of view, the planning department did a couple of years ago have a firm come from Buffalo that helped and met with a couple of municipalities on figuring out like what to do. Like say Trumansburg took advantage of that, and like what do we do with our Main Street? What about different, what are, and help them go through different scenarios of what we would like to see. And then after you do that, and then that helps inform your comprehensive plan versus, trying to do your comprehensive plan in a silo. You really need to make sure your comprehensive plan and any zoning and any codes align with what your vision is for your community. Otherwise, you can't actually do what you want. So. But yeah, I think this is good discussion. Maybe we can keep talking more about it this year. Anything else on that? Or anything else from you, Katie?
No, that's it. Thanks.
Great, thank you. And so we are on to the next department, which is, we have Barbara Ekstrom here from the Department of Recycling and Materials Management. And you have a couple of things here for us. Yeah. How are you, Barb?
I'm good, thank you. I hope everybody else is well. At this month's meeting, what we're talking about for audits are the Barton and Judas audits. These are for the scale replacement. And just to give you an update, the contractor has removed the old scale and is now laying concrete, and that's going to go on, and some other things, electrical, for about 2 weeks, and then the new scale will be placed finally and completed probably third or fourth week in March. So that's what is going on here.
Great. I've been in there a couple of times with some recycling and garbage and a lot of construction going on there, but they're keeping it, that you can still have flow going in and out there.
Oh, yes. So everything has been part of the plan. That's right. With engineers have been helping with that as well. And Leo Riley, my deputy, is overseeing the the construction as well, so.
Yeah, so it doesn't seem like it interferes with the functioning.
No, it's the plan. That's what's, it's going really well. I wanted to introduce Kat McCarthy, who is on the call. Here she is. Kat is one of our waste reduction and recycling coordinators. Kat worked with us for a number of years and then actually went into other jobs doing work with community arts as well as with a nonprofit helping with waste reduction issues. Kat is overseeing our waste reduction activities as well as reuse, and is also assisting with the development of our new solid waste plan. Kat is actually saving the county a bit of money. We were originally planning on having Barnell and Judas, our consultants, do more, and we're getting a much better piece of work, and their work is minimal. So what I just wanted to do real quick before Kat speaks, what we have in front of you today, I like to enter in with a big project in steps. Today, we're going over what the official process is that the New York State DEC governs for plans, and that's the 10-year solid waste minimization plan, I'd like to call it. It's really an opportunity to recreate how waste is reduced, and there is quite a bit of information here. So with that, I'll have Kat give you an update on what she's been writing.
So kind of building off of what was shared in the agenda packets, I wanted to provide just a brief overview of the solid waste management plan, kind of what it is, as well as the process. As Barb mentioned, it is a requirement from the state DEC. The DEC develops a statewide solid waste management plan, but then also each planning unit, in our case, Tompkins County is considered a planning unit. We manage and kind of set forth the plans for how materials managed within the community. We are required to develop a 10-year solid waste management plan as well. And this plan really overviews our materials management practices. It provides an opportunity to assess our current strategies and what we're currently doing, as well as helping us with the outlining of what the next steps over the course of the planning period will be. As noted in the outline in the overview that we provided, there's a number of chapters required by the state. The first one is the planning unit description. Again, that's just baseline background information about Tompkins County, the materials that we're generating. It follows by chapter 2, which is the waste generation and materials recovery data. That's really outlining kind of what's currently being generated in the county, and of what's being generated, kind of what happens to it. So roughly, how materials are being recycled, how much is going in the trash, and kind of the trash, a projection of how much we anticipate is made up of different types of materials. Chapter 3 is really looking at the existing solid waste management system. What are we currently doing? Chapter 4 really looks at the administrative and financial structure. Chapter 5 is one of the biggest pieces that we're really putting together here, and it's kind of got a funny name. It's the alternative evaluation and selection, but what it really means is kind of looking at where are we going? What are the next steps over the 10-year phase? And we've developed this with our 4 R's in mind. So how are we going to reduce, reuse, recycle, and rethink, as well as managing our organics? So from food waste prevention and donation to our food scraps recycling, as well as some other materials, the other materials that are being generated, whether that's hazardous waste, trash, and then how are local laws being enforced, and all of those important components. Chapter 6 looks at how much material, taking into account what we're planning on doing over the 10-year planning period. When is that going to take place? Kind of breaking it out more into when each of these components will be happening. And then chapter 7, the last one, is really looking at as we continue to further our materials management practices, include waste reduction and reuse and recycling programs, how are we going to see that impact the waste stream, with ideally looking at projections for reducing waste being generated overall. So as we hone the draft, we will be bringing updates and a final full plan. There is requirement for a 45-day public comment period as well as a public meeting. With that, then comments get incorporated as needed, and a draft needs to be submitted to the DEC for review, which usually takes about 3 to 4 months. And following that, we would incorporate any edits and provide an updated draft of the plan for final approval.
I'll just say something for about 30 seconds here. I was involved with the original plan back in the early 90s, which was adopted in 95. It was still quite ahead of the curve in terms of what we said we were going to do, what we accomplished. We exceeded the 40% diversion rate that was spelled out. We actually are at a point where we're in the neighborhood of 60% diversion in our community. Our previous legislator, the Board of Reps back then, and then the legislature was involved quite a bit. I've been intensely involved in the ideas, the possibilities, and quite frankly, really looking forward to moving this forward. And Kat and I have a very, very good partnership. There's a lot we're doing right now. It's a lot of our time. So what we're planning to do today, we're just rolling out a brief overview, answer any questions. Then we're coming back to you in March. I don't know that every T and every I will be dotted and ready to move forward, but we will have I'd say we're currently at about 80% completion with the draft. And I want to see a really, really good public process. We're going to go well above and beyond what the state requires with identifying stakeholders, having a lot of community involvement, and we'll lay that out for you a little more next month. I want to see us we're probably going to be extremely ambitious, look at the legal system of our laws, look at the enforcement actions, look at what is possible for that rethink component that we're very excited about. In terms of adding to the R's, and finally, we're gonna really move this along. But anytime that you feel you want more review, which you're going to have a lot of opportunity to review, or you want the timeline to be adding other ideas about incorporation. So what will essentially happen here is this will wind up coming to you as a document and a resolution that's done formally and required by the state, because this is part of their Part 360s regulations, and it's very well spelled out. And we have Barton Legitis to guide us on that. But in April, you will then have the opportunity to review the document, but also let it out for public comment meetings, touching people, and then it will end with the end of the comment period. You will continue. This will be something on your agenda for the rest of the year for sure, because ultimately this will go as a draft, as Kat said, to the state. And then guess what? There'll be a final document that will also be sharing how that's going to move forward. I'm happy that I'm still here to see the draft done, and then Kat will be working with you, and she'll be overseeing and guiding this plan. Now, it's important just for you to know, I have about 6 people on my staff involved with this in different program areas, And I'm pretty excited about it. I joked with Kat yesterday that, oh, maybe I'll come to the public comment period meeting and make comments because I'm retiring on April 7th. So that's our presentation. That's our major presentation today. And I'll give it back to you so that you can, see what the committee thinks.
Thank you, Barb. And Kat, good to see you again. Thank you for the presentation. Randy?
Barb, that was more than 30 seconds. Just joking.
Okay,
That's okay.
I guess I have a limited amount of time to use my words till the beginning of April.
That's okay. I just wanted to let you know that I had a chance last week to meet with Diane Cohn and get a tour of reuse in one of their warehouses. And it was quite the education, and you got a lot to be proud of the county being so ahead of the curve, and I look forward to staying ahead of it. So.
Yeah, you'll be seeing, we're in the process of finalizing a contract, Randy, with them right now. We really want performance measures for them. That was the issue that came up with Diane, and where Kat and I are working on that. Thank you for the compliment about that program. I think you're going to be really, really interested in the things we're going to be proposing here.
I'd be glad to be involved any way you would like. So.
Oh, goody. We need that.
I had a question, Kat, for the community meeting that you're going to have. So is that going to be like in person or a hybrid?
It's going to be both, Ann. It's going to be remote and it's going to be in person.
Okay, great. And so maybe, I'll try to attend if my schedule permits, and maybe, one or two more of us can try and go, because it's great to be, it'd be helpful to hear what the community has to say.
And you will in many ways. That's one way, but there's going to be what's called a responsiveness summary. It's going to identify all the comments and questions that people ask, and we're going to be responding to each and every one of those in a document, and that will be part of a presentation probably around the summertime.
Great. And are you also having a formal public hearing? Is that part of the process?
There will be a public hearing, yes.
Okay, great. So I really appreciate you, your department, thank you for all the 6 folks that are working on this, and also thank you for making sure that the public's involved and taking the time, to slow walk this, to make sure it's a really comprehensive, responsive plan.
I'm so glad. Back in the day when we first did this, that wasn't exactly the mode of operation, and I did the best I could at the time, but this is going to be so much better with this legislature and with the process, and I just can't say enough about Kat's leadership skills when it comes to program management. So.
Okay, great. Well, and we're a little bit behind, a couple minutes behind our schedule, but you have 2 more things, or one more.
I have one more thing.
Let me just first ask, is there any questions on their capital summary? Okay. Why don't you give us an update on the county environmental?
Yes.
Is that next?
What I'm just going to say, I think this will take us 2 or 3 minutes, is that we're very, very involved, Kat and I, with the county environmental procurement policy that was Amanda's baby back in the day, and then we expanded on it. And I feel that we have, we're going to touch you this month, and we're going to touch you again next month with information. There's another committee that will also be involved, which is Amanda's Committee Government Operations. And if we have 1 minute after Kat gives an update, I wanted to let you know about the March meeting. I could do that in about a minute because there's going to be a lot that's coming your way.
Okay, Randy, start your timer. No, go ahead.
All right, so I can share just a really brief update that the EPP management team is meeting regularly. We are in the process of bringing forward our first annual report that kind of looks at what's been going on in the county for purchasing, procurement of environmentally preferred products and services. And at this point, we're also working on our annual work plan as well as that report. So looking back at what we've already accomplished and then how are we going to move forward and continue to expand purchasing of green products. One of the key pieces that's a focus this year is really looking at raising awareness and making sure that everybody's aware of what's in this procurement policy and the county's commitment to green products, as well as kind of helping people understand how do I look for those products and what's my role as an employee or a departmental purchaser or wherever we sit in county government of trying to further and find more of these products and use those instead of alternative conventional products. So we are working on that and really focusing on the aim of that policy. And just a couple quick highlights. One is that New York State does have a new green purchasing communities program that we'll be exploring and pursuing that does tie into that climate smart communities component that Haley was mentioning earlier as far as potential for points towards a certification, as well as we've been looking at the surplus equipment policy and looking at proposal to update some of the components of that, and we'll be moving that through process. And again, just a big focus on really awareness and engagement across the county for increasing procurement of EPPs.
Thanks, Kat. I was trying to remember the name of it, and maybe that was it, the Green Purchasing Community. I thought there was some newish pathway through New York State. I think I saw it. It's something because some of us are going to the State Association of Counties coming up this weekend, and I thought that was mentioned in something.
Yep,
so
it is. I saw that too, and it's great that you're going to hear that. And Kat, Terry, and I are going to be moving forward with a resolution to this committee, probably in March, I believe, Kat, right? Is that March or April? Yeah. And it's very exciting because the work we've been doing on green purchasing over the number, it's been over a decade, and our, the strength of that program. Now we can fit in and lead in the state as well. So if there's anybody that wants any more information, let me know and we can, share it with you, or you can share what you learn with us after your conference.
Definitely. And I want to just say thank you for these updates. And if there's anything that we can do, to support you, because we'll be talking about our goals, and I forgot to ask the Department of Planning, but is there anything that you can think of that you'd like us to put, at the forefront of something for our goals to specifically support you this year?
I absolutely have thought about that. I think that the solid waste plan is one. The environmental product procurement is most definitely another. And there was one more that I had in my head, and I don't remember. Kat, do you have any? I mean, I think those are the main ones. Oh, product stewardship. What am I thinking? Product stewardship is the third. I'm on that. As Brian mentioned, I serve on the New York State Product Stewardship Council, and the impacts we'll be sharing with you in March. It wasn't ready for today by the group. A summary of that will help you to better understand what our role could be and the implications. So those are the three, and I did articulate those in the goals. And I would really like a conversation with you before too long, as I'm kind of transitioning, to just give you a sense of, this was just a quick blur, but if I could get 10 or 15 minutes with you and whoever else to just give you some information, that would be great.
Okay, definitely. I'm writing that down. So.
I'll reach out to you. And the vice chair also would be, it would be great. Finally, I just wanted to make sure that you're aware now that March will be my last meeting. so best as I know. And we have quite a bit that we're going to need time for in the March meeting. A lot of things are rolling out. We have 2 contract approvals, one for household hazardous waste and one for cubic compost. We will give you another solid waste management plan update with the specifics of our plan. We will have a financial update. Recycling revenues are very poor, but we're going to give you an overall update from last year, which wasn't bad, and then what we see happening. And finally, we're going to, I guess that's it. So, I mean, I'm estimating, normally I come in and out of here in about 15, 20 minutes, but I think if possible, I would appreciate more time at next month's meeting.
Okay, when thanks for the heads up on that. When as soon as you have, an amount of time that if you know what it is, you can just send an email to Brittany is our clerk for this committee for this year. So just let us know, hey, we need 45 minutes, even if you don't know all the topics.
All right,
half an hour.
I appreciate that very much. Thank you so much for your time.
And Barb, will you by chance be able to come in person for your last meeting? So
I would love to come in person.
Great. We look forward to seeing you in March.
I don't know why I don't anymore, but I look forward to seeing you in person, all of you. I just can't say enough good about how I feel about this legislature now and the environmental focus that this committee has. So.
Well, I don't want to say too much, but we're certainly going to miss you, and I can't say too much again right now because then I won't be able to read with my eyes being too watery, but we're going to miss you.
Wait, you're going to be in good hands. Lisa and I are meeting on Friday, and we'll be meeting more as we're transitioning, and there'll be a full process for hiring a new person. I'm working on a job change since mine was over 22 years old, and I'm still putting out fires at a landfill. So we'll make some changes, and we will move that process forward, and she'll be talking to you more about it.
Thank you. And just to clarify, not actual fires.
No, it was rats and fires.
Oh, it was actual fires back then.
Yep.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we were.
Wow.
Back in those days, and I am so happy I got
Good
to
old
see
methane.
what it was back then and what it is now. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Barb. We look forward to seeing you in person next month.
Okay, thank you very much. Bye.
Bye-bye. And thanks to Kat, too. We really appreciate it.
I actually need to stay on for the goals.
Okay. And that leads us next. Norma, you have the 2023 departmental goals for this committee?
Yes, these are in your packet on, what is it, beginning on page 27 and 28.
Right.
I am not going to read these. Like I said, this has been in your packet. If you have questions, the folks are here to answer questions about them. I will say, though, one thing that Barb and her team, we're meeting to discuss fees for for the folks who are on that little task force. We are going to meet about that, and I'll be pulling that group together after our meeting about the solid waste fees. Okay. That's it.
Okay. Any questions about the goals right now? Okay. Thank you for preparing this. Again, lots of things that the departments will be doing. Okay. Any other questions in general for Norma or anything else from county administration that's going on right now? How's your transition to deputy going?
I think it's going well. I have both tasks going on, but yeah, still bringing the budget online and the new software as well. But yeah, got a good team.
What's the process of hiring somebody to be the budget director?
Well, I'm not going to speak for Lisa or Ruby, but presently because of the implementation, bringing a new person into the middle of trying to get the software up and running might get a little complicated. So that's just my thoughts. And we do have a very good budget analyst that's been working alongside. But then also we have so many other positions being canvassed right now that because I can fill the two roles temporarily, it might be working out well for them to be able to get those filled and then move on to the budget director. Again, don't want to speak for them, but that's the way it's happening in our world.
Well, I appreciate you being flexible.
Oh, happy to do it.
Okay, then moving on, I wanted to ask Brittany, so when we passed before the appointments for the liaison committee, so are we all set on that then? We don't need to do anything else on that? Okay, good. And so I wanted to move on to my report. I just had a short report, and then I'm going to open it up to see if any committee members have reports, and then we have a couple more things. For the Planning Advisory Board, which I'm a member because I'm the chair of this committee, I went to, we had a meeting recently, and Leslie Schill was voted in as chair, and CJ Randall was vice chair. So I just wanted to announce that. And I think that's it, actually, so that I had for a report. And so I know Susan said she might have a short report. Go ahead.
I attended the AF, I can't remember.
It's a long name, Agricultural and Farmland Protection Board.
It was brand new. It was one of my first committee meetings. It was fascinating. It was a very lively group, and I was very interested in some of their topics. Randy normally attends that, but I am the alternate. The discussion, there was a lot of discussion about solar, the implementation of solar on farms and how that happens, and how municipalities can guide solar development in farms. There was also a discussion about the new zoning restrictions that will be going into a vote in Lansing. That was a discussion. There was also a discussion about what municipalities can do to have some input and participation in any initiatives that impact farms. There was a discussion of unionization on farms and trying to get an understanding of PERB and the New York Labor Relations Board. And there was a discussion of a possible agricultural district near Thomas Road. And I thought the discussion was really interesting around the importance of keeping the rural character of farms in their terms. That was a very interesting discussion. That was it. Oh, and they're planning an agricultural summit March 24th.
Thank you. I think did you leave out the most important part? Did they have lunch for you?
Well, I had to attend by Zoom because I had back-to-back meetings and I couldn't be there, but it sounded like a wonderful lunch.
Sounds like okay.
But the group was really lively and very interesting. I loved hearing the farmers talk about how many cows they had and how many acres they had. 1,700 cows. Amazing. Very appreciative of them.
Well, thank you for letting us know about how that meeting went. And thank you for, agreeing to be the alternate for that. Randy?
Yeah, and come to any meeting.
Yes,
too. Okay.
I plan to.
Good. I actually had an extension finance meeting at the same time that got rescheduled, so that's why I wasn't there. The CCE is a lot going on with them. Their financial system called Acumatica, which is statewide now, and it put forth by the administration of Cornell Crop Protection, which is at the campus up here, is really improving their systems greatly. Everybody has to use that system, and Cornell itself can actually review it. It's an online system, so you can look to see all their expenses, how they get approved. Their processes are pretty straightforward, and it's really helped the extension get their financial legs underneath them to understand the strength of that organization. And it's improving greatly. One of the problems they had for quite some time is they literally weren't invoicing correctly or at all in some cases. And that's a problem. If you're an invoicer, you don't get paid. So that's all been cleaned up. Everything's been invoiced. And they had large receivables that were about $400,000 were over 12 months old, which is very hard to collect. One was actually New York State Ag itself was over 2 years past due on about $200,000 bill, which they worked hard on and they're going to get paid for. So it looks like we actually had reserved in the prior year for some of those potential losses, and it looks like everything is going to get paid. Right now, their total outstanding is about $240,000 compared to what it was a year ago. So, and what's nice is everybody can see that now, so you can see what's going on. Very, very happy with the financial status of CCE. They have more things to do, but that's good. I'm also on the facilities committee for that group, and they finally have a facilities coordinator person that they haven't had for about 2 years, and they've evaluated their 4-H acres, as well as the Arnott Forest. The Arnott Forest is somewhat unique that about a third of the land is in Tompkins County, but the facilities are in Schuyler County. So I have questions for administration because they may come forth with a request for funds to repair those facilities because they have not had a repair facility, a repair program in place, really. It's been a put fire out type thing. 4-H acres needs a lot of work. And as does Arnott Forest, if it's going to be used. And it may not be used. They may decide not to renew that lease, which is $1 a year. It's because it's not really being utilized now. So that was an interesting discussion on that, and I will talk to administration whether or not we can even fund any type of repairs there, an OTR, since it's not in this county, the facilities themselves. So if you would check into that, Norma, I appreciate that. But their financial status is good. Their reserves are being understood. They do have reserves. They're not substantial, but it's good that they have some. It's not the other way around. So just want to share that.
Thank you, Randy. And I appreciate you and Susan being on the Cornell Cooperative Extension Board, and then sometimes you're on subcommittee or committees for that. And I know it's a lot of work. It takes a lot of time. So I appreciate you, doing that. And did you also mention to me, Randy, that the administrator might be looking at coming to this committee to give us an update?
Yes, they'll actually have their budget on time this year because they haven't the last few years. So their budget has to be to the campus by the end of March. And she will come in April to this meeting and present their budget and any requests they may have and updates. So.
And this is great. And just go ahead, Susan, will you? Yeah, and anytime you talk to the staff or anybody there, feel free to to let them know, because there's a couple of years ago where we had questions about their finances, and them coming to report to us and having this software and more transparency. As far as what I've been hearing is we're feeling, much more comfortable with that, and them coming to us to give us that information, keeps that relationship, very solid. And so again, the issues and the concerns we had before, as far as I'm concerned, I won't speak for everybody, but as far as I'm concerned, since they report to this committee, I guess I'll just speak for myself, is that I feel much better about their organization and their finances.
I just wanted to, just joined the Personnel Committee and went to the first meeting there. And they've been reviewing job descriptions and salary ranges. I mean, they're doing a complete review of everything, and they seem to be on the right track.
Right.
I think morale's improved greatly there as well. There's no doubt, just in the 1 year I've been there, how it's much more inclusive. And it wasn't necessarily run that way before. Meg is doing a good job and really putting a good team together. And she's an interim director, so she'll be there for roughly another 16 months. So there'll be a search for a director coming up. And
so how often do you have meetings there?
There's
is it monthly?
There's a monthly board meeting, which should be coming up. It's the first, I think it's the first Thursday of the month, is that right? But but you're on one committee and I'm on another. There are several committees, so they have a lot. They cover a lot, but they're a big organization and they do a lot in the county, and so it's interesting. And they have their representative from Cornell who participates on the board as well. So it's an interesting meeting.
Paul O'Connor.
They've been doing a lot of work.
Comes to every meeting now.
Yeah.
Great. And since it sounds like March, the Recycling and Materials Management Department could have a lot on our agenda. So if they come in April, that sounds like, as of right now, it sounds like we'd be able to accommodate them.
I think that it'd be good for Susan and I to meet with Meg, and I've talked to her about this prior to the April meeting to make sure that whatever we're interested in knowing is let her know. So if there's any other things that anybody would like to hear about from CCE, one of the things they're putting together is all the programs they do. So you see everything they're doing, and also they're going to show us all the grants, because they get a lot of grants from a lot of areas. So all that data will be coming forth as well.
Yeah, and especially through this committee, I think we'd be, more interested if they went into more, some detail of, their environmental and agricultural things that they do, which is, I know it's a big chunk of what they do. So I think that would be a particular interest. Greg or Veronica, do you have anything that you want to put a shout out to Susan and Randy as far as asking for CCE when they're coming to do their report? Any questions? Veronica, nothing? Okay, thank you for that. And Veronica, I saw your hand going up.
Yeah, I have another report back from an advisory board, if that's the time.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, great. So as described, I attended the case board meeting, but we heard a lot from them earlier, so I'm not going to touch on that. But I also went to a meeting of the Fish and Wildlife Management Board, which I've been newly appointed to, and that the meeting was at the DEC, Department of Environmental Conservation office in Cortland, so that was cool to go to there. Some people attended on Zoom, but it was nice to see their office. The Fish and Wildlife Management Board is basically about fish and wildlife, and largely composed of and focused on sportsmen, people, hunters and fishers, and covers the whole DEC region that we're in, which I want to say is 7 counties. I don't remember, of which Tompkins is one. And the Fish and Wildlife Management Board is a state mandated board, but this meeting, they've started doing joint meetings with the Conservation League covering the same regions, which is just a volunteer organization that reports back to the county's Federation of Sportsmen. So members from both groups were present, and just a few interesting bits to report back. One thing, there's a smartphone app called Hunt Fish New York that has a lot of features, and one piece in it is this thing called Tackle Box, where you can look at a place, if you fish, you can go to a location and it'll tell you where to go to fish and what's the history of stocking fish in these bodies of water. And a rep from the DEC said they're in the process over these next few years of vetting all the info in there, because, for instance, land may have changed hands since they got the original public fishing permission or whatever, and Tompkins County is slated for 2024 for vetting the land permissions. We probably don't have to do anything about that, but just wanted to let folks know. They verified that a 120-pound sturgeon was caught in Cayuga Lake, which is fun. You can't fish sturgeon, but the DEC is monitoring the population. and everyone is excited about that. On March 10th, there's going to be a school archery competition at the fairgrounds in Syracuse through this program, the National Archery in Schools program, NASP. I forgot what it stands for, but it sounds really cool. It's a program that a school can sign up to participate in, and it's trying to get kids training in archery. And one of their big things is that archery is a really inclusive sport, and they seem to focus on that. Like, boys and girls compete together. The gender doesn't really matter. They do a lot of like adapting the archery for folks with disabilities and whatnot. So that just sounded exciting, and I'd love to get the word out that that exists. On a similar but different vein, someone from Onondaga County was announcing that applications are still open for their Women in Nature program, which is a one-day, all-day workshop for women to do nature things. A lot of it is around like hunting and fishing and like skills getting out in nature. It's free for participants. It's mostly taught by women. They told an anecdote of a woman who came once and like had learned to fire a gun, fired it once, and then was like really emotional about like, wow, I've been so scared of guns, and now I've like fired one and kind of helped get over that. And they asked, would you like to do it again? And she was like, no, I'm good. So good for everyone. And so folks can apply. It's in Onondaga County, but folks apply from out of state. But also why I'm reporting back is the people who run it have a workbook available for any other like counties or organizations that want to run something similar. They're interested in like expanding and helping advising other groups. And I think that's it. I'm planning to go to the next meeting of the Tompkins Conservation League just to like hear what they're talking about too. And I'll report back as appropriate in the future.
Great, thanks, Veronica. I wonder if, speaking the topic you said about the archery program, I wonder how many sportsmen's clubs or, you know, where would we reach out? I guess I don't know any organizations. And that's what just comes to mind, that I know there's sometimes local sports people's club. Sporting clubs, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Greg, for putting me out of my misery.
Yeah, I don't really know. I know the archery in schools, it's a thing that, I mean, it would make sense to partner with a sporting club, I think, but the program is set up so that like a school has to opt in and sign up, and then like via the school, students can participate. But I think, so the Conservation League is like a collection of representatives from these sporting clubs. So that's one thing I'm hoping to learn more about going there, because I don't hunt or fish myself, but obviously it's a thing. And a thing with a lot of participants in our county.
Right. Well, thank you for that report. Any other member reports? Okay, well, thank you. It's good. I appreciate having, hearing back from the different groups. And any boards that you belong to, I just always like to put the shout out. The case board has been pretty active, and they attend our meetings frequently. Feel free to any of the boards, ask them to, come and report once or twice, but also if they just have a topic that's going on that they want to inform us about. And also, it works both ways. If there's something that we have a question about, we can ask them. So I think the last thing I just wanted to ask about goals. I had a couple ideas for a couple of goals for the committee this year. Did anybody else want to start with anything that they were thinking? Mostly with this committee, I've thought of it the last few years as the departments, as you see, and administration, helping them they come up with their goals, and which was said before in another meeting, that, you know, that's based on the guidance that we give them over the years and what direction, and they implement them. And I am very impressed with, you know, how they're implementing them. So I see mostly what our role is to figure out how to support them. But I did think of a couple of things, and so I'll just go ahead, and anybody can jump in, is really keeping an eye on what's going on at the state and how we can support that. And also, you know, the federal government, I know Greg and our chair, Shauna Black, they went to DC recently to the National Association of Counties, and keeping an eye, this particular time, there's a confluence of what's going on at the state and the monies available and the programs available through the federal government. So the most, if we can do the most to try and access that, and I know our departments are keeping an eye on that, so I'm not too worried, but if we come up with things, you know, that we want to ask our departments, are they aware of? Can we take advantage of something? You know, feel free to do that. And through the case board, they're going to continue to help us on the state level, especially with the climate action plan, to help make sure, as they said, that because the devil's in the details of that. They can have this great plan, but do they actually have the funding? Do they have the bills and laws and structure to actually implement those things? So we'll be keeping up on that. So two other things I thought of. One was about deconstruction, and it's been brought up a couple times in various ways about, we've talked about it regarding, for instance, the Red House on Tioga Street that the county owns. But this is more and I'm trying to think of who else. I know Greg and I, a couple of us went up maybe 6 months, a year ago, maybe 6 months ago, with the reuse center. They were deconstructing a house up in College Town, and for some development, and the reuse center was up there, and this made me think of this too with Randy going to the reuse center. I'd like to learn maybe it would start from the reuse center finding out what's their capacity right now to deconstruct buildings. Because granted, you know, I'd prefer to reuse and keep the buildings there most of the time, but there's going to be times we're seeing all this construction in Ithaca. Sometimes houses are going to be not able to stay up, and how I know in different communities they have a lot more infrastructure for doing that. Is that possible here in this small community? I don't even know, to deconstruct more and salvage more. So maybe that would start with with the reuse. Are folks okay about that? That maybe we have them come in and see, what they can do. Is there more we can do to support that, so that it's possible to deconstruct more?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea because there are challenges. Obviously, contamination, everything that's old.
Right. Can you use your mic? Yeah.
Everything that's old has some type of contamination, most likely.
Exactly.
Significant elements, I know, is dealing with some of that as well.
Right.
And some of the things, too, there's new things out there as far as environmentally friendly for stripping things. They may not want to recycle now because they don't want to deal with that. It can be expensive, but also be even more expensive to replace the materials. So I think understanding some of that makes a lot of sense. I know that reuse did get a lot of flooring, for example, from that deconstruction you went to up at College Town.
Right.
And now what do? They denailed it. They actually made these custom denailers.
Right.
But now what do? Right? So, and plus also it's a matter of where do you take this stuff? It costs money to warehouse these things before you sell them, how you maintain it, how you actually do the work of making it so it's saleable. But yeah, I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, and it's just open up a lot of questions like, are these materials that they're salvaging, are all of them able to be used? I'm presuming that they're all, but I know there's building codes and things like that, and reusing some materials, is that allowable? Or when we were up at, in College Town at the deconstruction, they took I think it was a dormer they were taking off. Is somebody able to use that dormer intact? Is that allowable? Is somebody building a place where they can come, because it makes most sense if you can come, can you attach that to another building? So I'd like to find out, more about that. And, and Tompkins County has led that, with helping through our recycling and materials management department with Barb's stewardship, start the reuse center. And how can we support efforts, whether it's through reuse, significant elements, or another organization? I don't know. So that was one thing I wanted us to try and make some time to talk about this year. And one more topic was that we have talked before, if there's a new center of government, to have that building be net zero as far as energy usage. But so I guess it would be probably talking with our planning department, and maybe administration, do we have a policy? We've talked about that, but do we have a policy? Is it good to, set that in stone? And I see Katie chiming in here.
You got me before I could raise my hand. Yeah, I will say Terry Carroll is working on a revision or update to the green building policy. We do have one now, but it's fairly short and not very comprehensive. And so Terry has been working on gathering best practices, looking at different models around the country of a green building policy, and looking to bring that through probably Facilities and Infrastructure Committee.
Okay, all right, so we'll, keep an eye on that and see if we can help support that. And see, Greg, you're on F&I, but I think you're the only one from this committee. Oh, you're on that too. Okay, sorry. So we have two people, so we can help keep an eye on that, because that kind of overlaps both committees. But if it goes through your committee, we'll, and then it'll go through GO. Okay, Randy?
I really like your idea of understanding what is coming down from the federal government as far as grants. I just heard of one, and actually it does overlap. For example, there's one now, grants out there that it's about land access, but it's also, so it's ag and it's housing. So it does overlap with what your program is. There's one out there right now that the federal government, I think it's $1 billion, and it'll be coming down through the states. And it's about land access in ag and soil and water. So there's a lot of things coming, and that's just what I just heard of. So there's a lot of that coming on. I know Cuba International just applied for a grant for their program that didn't get awarded through us. I just heard about it. So I think there's a lot out there that we could learn from.
Right.
So.
Right. Greg?
Yeah, so I had a conversation with one of our colleagues recently about committee goals and the idea around committee goals and sort of the short-term nature of how we approached committee goals recently. And I think we should be taking a slightly longer-term approach. We had a conversation at a legislature meeting about work plans recently, and I think Deborah brought up a point, Deborah Dawson, about getting budget priorities in sooner before the budget could take place. And so I think if we had some, here's some things we want to make sure we accomplish this year, but what really is the long-term 3 to 5 year goal of this committee, right? As sort of we take a step back, and I want to do a little exercise when in HED, Housing and Economic Development Committee, next meeting, looking at a longer range goal setting. I know as we look to have more of a strategic plan, but how can that goal that maybe gets reaffirmed, those goals get reaffirmed each year, or we check in on them each year, but then also how can that help drive and direct the work plans of the departments that report up through those committees? Because I think one of the things that we're doing is we're getting work plans or department goals, and then we're making our committee goals, where I love that, and I want our departments to be a part of our committee goal setting, but I do think that we should have a slightly longer term approach to what are our goals as a legislature, how are those reflected in our committee goals, and then how then do the department goals reflect the goals of the legislature and the committee goals, and how can they bring ideas to the committee that then we say, yes, we want to incorporate these into our committee goals as well. But having a little bit more of a long-term approach rather than this rush in February each year to sort of reset what our goals are, and January, hey, did we do everything we wanted to do over the last 11 months? I just think we need to take a step back and look a little bit longer term. We can have short-term goals, but I think we need to have really sort of a long-term vision and state some clear ideals that this committee and every committee that we have will work towards and be slightly aspirational. I know like sorry, I'm going to blank here for a second. Ithaca Area Economic Development, they bring sort of like a 5-year plan, and they have their sort of key metrics that they'll measure. And sometimes those metrics are way off, and sometimes they're dead on, but at least there's something to measure against. And so I think having a goal without really having some sort of measurement or some sort of outcome, we're really just sort of stating things that we want to make sure that we cover. So is there a way to look more long-term, to look more strategic? And again, we're not going to do this today, but maybe that this is something that we could look longer term, right? What are the planning and environmental quality and energy things that we want to make sure over the next several years are accomplished? Because not all of them can be done in 11 months. So just my sort of goal-setting comments for today, but and again, I don't know what that looks like for this committee yet, because it's this new thought that I've had recently, and I don't know what it looks like for other committees of the legislature, but I think we need to be more strategic, we need to be more long-term, and take a more proactive role rather than a reactive role in setting policy direction and setting a vision for how we move forward as a county departments, as county committees, and ultimately as a legislature.
Thanks for that, Greg. I think part of that might be looking at what long-term plans do we already have. So things that have been initiated by other legislators, other departments in the past, administration in the past, like the housing strategy, for instance, that would be more covered under your HED committee, and then our longer term, policies regarding environmental stuff that we do have long-term plans, and maybe taking a look at them and then seeing where there's gaps, do we agree with them? Because those are plans that we have had input in. So sometimes I look at, well, there's been a lot of things set in motion, but what are they? And do we agree with them, first off? Do we want to, steer the boat a little bit? Or is it something that was, like Barb's saying, it was a 10-year plan? And, if we have a plan that's 10 years, was that looked at? I don't want to pick on them too much, but if you had a plan that was redone 10 years ago, are we making sure that it's redone every 5 years, that we take a serious look at it? Because things change so fast. Is that still current? And what can we do or help that department? And are there other things that aren't just touched by any of these plans? Because if somebody's already put it out there, and I know, like, for instance, like, say, housing, is a hard one, and then looking at, the planning department said about looking at helping municipalities look at their land, our land, that's just to try something different. But I like the idea of, like, making sure that we are looking, and that's why partly I was not really myself thrilled with the idea of, like, all of a sudden we started yearly goals a couple of years ago, and it was like, well, we have longer term goals, and to me, that often looks like helping with those longer term plans, because they've been set in motion. I see a lot, but Go ahead.
I guess one of the things that, is what's our committee roadmap, right? Because those things exist in the actions of legislatures past, but is there a consolidated space to say, we're going to reaffirm these each year. We're going to reaffirm our commitment. We're going to review, does this make sense? Does this need to be elevated for some reason? Or do we need to maybe take a step back because funding may not be there? But what is something that can go from committee to committee each year that just gets modified or tweaked or updated of, hey, here's the actions of this year, here's the actions of the past. And if something like that exists, and I just don't know, great. I'd love to see that. And I think Norma's got her hand up, and Katie's got her hand up. But that's just sort of I think we need to be a little bit more bigger picture.
Norma, and then Katie?
Yeah, and it might be the same thing Katie was going to bring up. So there's a team of folks between the planning department and the county administration, and we are working toward a strategic plan. And I think that will help answer or address some of these questions, these long-term goals, these, where do we want to go? How are we going to prioritize it? I agree. I think that just from my own experience, having a business plan that you're regularly looking at, every single committee, doesn't matter where you are, and you're going, okay, is this part of our plan? Because it helps you not to deviate, right? Helps you to better work smarter, not harder, throughout the year. And then we can really build budgets around that. You can build plans around that, and you can give great direction to the departments that really are looking for you to guide what they do and how they put their work plans together. So I think the strategic plan may answer some of these, and it's so close. We can reach out and almost touch it. So it's really, really close to getting to that point. But no, that's the way I've worked for a long time. Yeah.
I like that it's going to be, working with this, having input and working with the strategic plan, and then breaking, some parts off. Katie, did you want to add anything?
I just think that Greg should be the spokesperson for the strategic operations plan, because that's exactly what the vision of that plan is. And the only other thing I wanted to let people know, in case you don't know, the Department of Planning and Sustainability, when we look to build our work program, we look to our existing plans and strategies that have been accepted by the legislature and look at the action items within them. And that forms the basis of our work program, is trying to implement the strategies and plans that have gone through a public process, that have had the legislature look at them and accept them or adopt them. And that's how we build our plan. Just so you know, that's what we do.
Yeah.
You don't get them out of thin air then?
Which was not my point in that comment. I was just something that we were all on the same page, right? Those of us that have been here for 20 years or 20 days, right? There's something that we can all point to and put our hands on and reference and click a document that is interactive in some way. And that the community can also look and say, where does my idea fit in, and what committee do I go to based on what their long-term planning may be? So,
and I would say, Greg, for at least my department, that's the comprehensive plan.
Okay. That
really is the document that guides our work.
Right.
And that's why the departments go through the work that they do every year to do these goals, because, and the county administration did the same thing. The planning, we pulled up last year as we went through it, okay, what's been done, what's not done, and that starts our goals too. So I think most departments are doing it that way.
And so do we need to nominate Greg as the spokesperson for the strategic plan? Do we?
Happy to help where I need it.
Randy?
I like your comments, Greg. The comprehensive plan is very valuable, and I understand how that works. But I think it's also important that legislators, we're in touch with our constituents and what they're hearing. And the goal that we talked about in Health and Human Services yesterday, we talked about communication and how all the programs that the county provides, and there are many that are great programs reaching so many people, but so many people don't know about them. and how they implemented and how the handoffs are done and all those kinds of things. I think you need a plan for that. And it's not a plan that you're going to do in the short term, because that is a changing model all the times. When I think about strategic planning, I look forward to reading that document. It quite often crosses every committee. And let me give an example. So we have an aging population, right? So we all know that's something that's happening. And what does that mean? Well, it means that obviously aging and health and human services people, there's that side of it. Well, it also means they're going to transition from their houses, right? So also housing is involved. And then energy is involved, how there are people on fixed incomes and how that fits in. And then it's all the stuff that they've accumulated. And what do they do with all that stuff? I know that somebody who's transitioned elderly family people to nursing homes, which is another issue, right? So, and then what do you do with all the stuff? And there's just so much stuff. And maybe there's a way to deal with that in a better way. So I think that, we need to think about that whole picture. So I like that idea.
Yeah. Thank you. And Greg, thanks for bringing that up, trying to, look at that as to me, I think of that as like a holistic approach, which I am always, leaning towards when we look at things. So a lot of great conversations and things we talked about today. And so with Barb Ekstrom retiring, Katie, I'm hoping maybe you can join us in person next month. Is that possible? We could.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Sure.
Yeah, and invite anybody that you want to. We can at least say goodbye to her in person. And we'll keep our ears open if they're having a retirement party for her or anything like that maybe we could go to. Do you know how many years she's been here? 30-something probably, or? 22 in that position?
34, something like that.
36, so yeah, somewhere around between 34 and 36.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's been a great leader here and across the state. All right, well, if nothing else, I guess motion to adjourn. Okay, moved by, I'm not sure, Randy, seconded by Greg, and all those in favor, just raise your hand. All right, thank you very much, everybody. Great meeting.